Class, this is math lesson 11.9 for pre-K. I can identify measurement tools. Directions: color the objects that we use to measure weight. You know, boys and girls, there's lots of ways to measure things. We can measure how long something is. We can measure how tall something is. We can measure how much something weighs. Now, if you wanted to know how heavy something was, would you use snap cubes to find out? If I wanted to know how much Theo weighed, would I weigh him on snap cubes? Well, that wouldn't make sense, would it? So that wouldn't work out. If you want to measure something that's heavy, you need to have some type of scale. So I wanted to show you one of the scales that we have in our classroom. Some of you have seen us use this before. A scale is how you measure how heavy something is or how light something is. So let's look at your paper. Do you see a scale that looks like a classroom scale? Yeah, kind of like this, right? So you would color this scale because you could measure how heavy or light something is, or if something was heavier or lighter than something else. So that's one scale, and we already talked about snap cubes are not a scale. Have you ever seen one of these at the grocery store that you put your apples in or your oranges in to see how much they weigh? This is another way to see how heavy or how light something is. This is a scale. You would color that. Do you have one of these in your house? It might be in your bathroom. This is a scale to weigh people. You can get on there and see if you're growing bigger by how much you weigh. Sometimes moms and dads get on these scales to see how heavy they are or how light they are. And often when you go to the doctor, they want to weigh how heavy or light you are. So that's a scale that you might see for people. Now this is a way of measuring too. It's how you measure how long or short something is, but it's not the way we measure how heavy something is or how light something is. So this is the wrong type of measuring tool to measure weight. Here's a ruler, and we have rulers in our classroom, don't we? And rulers are something that help us with how long something is or how short something is, but we wouldn't stand on this and find out how much we weigh. So a ruler is not a way to measure weight. Now, a different way to measure things is with time. How much time does it take to do something? And you can measure that using some different measuring tools, For instance, in our classroom, you've seen a timer like this, right? It's our sand timer. That's one way to measure. Some of you have used our little purple sand timers. We can measure time with timers, or we can measure time with a clock. Can we measure how long it takes us to do something with a bowl? Well, that doesn't make sense. We don't measure with a bowl, but we do measure with a clock. We find out time with a clock. So you would color a clock because a clock helps keep track of time. This is a stopwatch. Sometimes when Mrs. Kelly teaches PE, she uses a stopwatch to see how fast somebody runs. That's a way to measure time. This is a thermometer. You might have one in your refrigerator, or you might have one outside to see how hot or cold it is. And we have one in our math area, our calendar math area. This helps us measure hot and cold, but it doesn't help us measure time, how long or short something takes. Oh, right here, look at that. Is that a cell phone? I think it is, with a time, with a clock on it. I have a cell phone with a clock on it. And certainly that is one way to measure time, is on our clocks or on our watches, right? So we can see how long or how short or what time it is. How about a pan? Does a pan help us know how long something takes or how fast something goes? It doesn't. And this is a fun clock here. This clock has an alarm right on top of it. These bumps right here are alarms. And sometimes we have an alarm clock that helps us know when it's time to get up in the morning. So use your measurements to decide which tools we measure weight with and which tools we measure time with. When you're done, take a picture for your Seesaw Journal.